Let's go across to the United States. Alexis Baden-Mayer is in Washington, D.C. She's the political director of the Organic Consumers Association, Regeneration International, USA. Now, Alexis is another skeptic on the level of effectiveness of the vaccine and also on its fair distribution. Welcome, Alexis.
Thank you so much for having me, George.
Is there currently a war around the world in the race to get vaccines?
Yes, I think that we have been put in a position where it's all or nothing. We have been told we need to shut everything down until there's a vaccine. And that has put a lot of pressure on this situation, this question of whether the vaccines are safe, whether they're effective, whether they're going to work, whether they will relieve us from the shutdown and the closures that we've experienced. So yes, I think that it's especially heightened because it's been promoted as really the only solution to relieving us from lockdowns is to vaccinate. And that's where I have the big disagreement with vaccination. It's not that I am opposed to vaccinations in general, or that I'm particularly concerned about their safety or effectiveness. What I am concerned about is that we've taken on this all or nothing public health approach. We've been told it's vaccines or nothing. And I don't think that's true. And what I would like to see is, even now, I think that we could save lives by doing more testing, by using cheap, effective antiviral medications like ivermectin, and by boosting our population's health. Now, I work for the Organic Consumers Association, so of course, we would have liked everyone to have been eating organic, toxin-free, nutrient-dense food last year or forever. So I would like to see a more comprehensive public health approach than just this shutdowns, vaccines, all or nothing system.
Is it true that developed nations are stockpiling over 1 billion doses of vaccines?
Well, unfortunately, I'm jaded enough to believe that it's about corporate interest. I wrote an article about Bill Gates, and the conclusion I came to in writing that article is that he was more concerned about the profits of the vaccine companies that he's invested in than he was about public health. So that's the model that I'm seeing. It's all about corporate profits. So if you have something cheap, off patent, like hydroxychloroquine, that's not going to make anybody any money. You know, vitamin C, vitamin D, that's not going to make anyone any money.
In your view, has the vaccine been politicized by the media?
Well, I've never said that there's no point in vaccination. But what I see that is troubling is that it's complete lockdown until we can have a vaccination. And that just simply factually was never the case. And it was never enough to protect the people who needed to be protected. I work in food and agriculture. There's an organization called the Food and Environment Reporting Network. They've been tracking COVID cases and COVID deaths in meatpacking facilities, on farms, and in food processing. And you know, it's just been a complete crisis in the United States. And that's because the companies, Tyson, JBS, National Beef, Cargill, Smithfield, they were told by the federal government that their workers' health was not their responsibility, that they would see no liability if there were COVID cases or COVID deaths among their workforce. And therefore, they did not test their workers. They did not provide paid sick leave. They pressured their workers to work when they were sick. And this is going now.
Will you yourself take the vaccine?
I thought you might ask me that, and I've been thinking about that all morning. You know, I am a public transit advocate. I would like to see more rail and less cars, right? And I know that rail is a lot safer than car travel. And yet, I produced 2 beautiful little babies, and when they were still, you know, precious and young, strapped them into car seats and put them on the road, knowing that they could die in a car accident. And so that's sort of how I feel about the COVID vaccine. The COVID vaccine is probably not as dangerous as driving a car, probably. And so, the jury's still out on that. We don't have the stats yet, but I'm guessing it's safer to take a COVID vaccine than to drive in a car. So I question myself. But you know what? It's going to depend primarily on whether I'm forced to do it. That's not a great situation. I think that our medical decisions should be voluntary. And I don't think that folks should be forced to get vaccinations. I think that we have to have public health protocols that, might sometimes separate vaccinated from unvaccinated people. But normally for general life, I don't think that's necessary. And I don't think we should all be forced to take vaccines.